This is where everybody gets their minutes back. Because the canyon story is kind of a short story. You notice with the maps that Ron put up before that there were districts drawn, the Big Sky Water District, and then, all these different entities. The canyon was not included in those entities, but even more important, the canyon is not included in any entity. So the canyon operates much like a lot of rural Montana does. The vast majority of the residential is a septic well. You have a few, I guess, what I would call minor water systems, anything from, say, the trailer court on up to probably Bucks T4 as the largest, which is a real microcosm of what happens up here. I actually thought about putting some slides together with annual flow data and projections and stuff and just putting question marks in all the columns just for entertainment purposes, because there is no common element. There's a lot of data missing from the canyon. So outside of the individual residential systems in most of the homes that sort of dot the canyon, you've got public water systems at the Whitewater, at Bucks, the Corral, Rainbow, Ophir, Ramshorn, and Lazy J South, which is the development that's kind of been in a holding pattern just north of Bucks. That's the Lazy J Utility Association, and they've been struggling with water right for about 10 years, and that looks to be probably in the final stages. If you have any questions about that, contact Hammond Property Management for the time being. But outside of that, it's mainly septic well. Most of the other water systems that are public water systems are some combination of septic drain field. Ramshorn falls into that category. The individual homes have septic tanks, with a few variations, and then common drain field in the neighborhood. At Bucks, we've got a similar sort of system to kind of what happens up here in the meadow, just on a much, much, much smaller scale. But we've got 3 storage lagoons up behind Bucks, and then we irrigate that on the 6 acres that are on the furthest back. We do have a lift station because we go uphill, but we only got one. If you see some construction back there, we're just replacing a 30-year-old liner that was up at the end of its life. So we have the exact same issues, but the closest thing really that exists in the canyon to that kind of public water system is Bucks T4 in terms of that kind of infrastructure, and it's on a much, much simpler scale. We don't have a treatment facility. It's all pumped up for aeration and storage, and then irrigated out on our own property back there. So I think the important takeaway from that is that as all of these other systems and Ron's stack of studies and everything going back to the late 1970s, that really doesn't exist for the canyon as a whole. There's no single political entity outside of being in the greater resort tax district or the fire district or the school district, that delineates the Gallatin Canyon by itself. So that's just something I think to bear in mind as growth happens, development happens, as options are considered by this group and by the Sewer and Water District and so on. The obvious question is, well, why don't we just tie in? And Ron will be the first one to tell you that's, sure, it just comes down to money. That there are some significant infrastructure issues with that. It's certainly possible, but the community would need to decide that that's a common goal that we would need to share together. All of that is permitted and regulated by DEQ, but I think that's the important takeaway, is that there really is no common system down there or outside of the DEQ's oversight of all of those systems. Any one organization that, there's not a board that meets or studies that are done or anything like that. So I guess my presentation is a little bit of my presentation. Please do.
The canyon property with all those drain fields and septic systems, you have the numbers. What are the numbers? If the district were to tie in the canyon, so it's not just about money and putting pipes in the ground and pumps in the ground. There's a significant. You saw the table that Ron had. There's a disposal crunch just in the current kind of configuration it is now. If the canyon was added to the,
and you would have to plan for everything that's
zoned,
permissive, that's zoned, not just everything that's there.
We did a study in 2008. It's one of the documents that's linked on our website. But in that study, we hired an engineer just to, we what kind of flows would you take on if you were to sewer the canyon? So we looked at going to the canyon all the way down to the corral. And it basically, based on their study, estimated 1 million gallons a day total flow at full build-out. We're currently at 390,000 with the mountain and meadow as it stands today. One
Right.
big problem we've got, the canyon has some pretty high zoning densities. I'm glad Tim's here to hear this.
Mhm.
Canyon has some big zoning densities. You could never build those densities with well and septic. So it's a catch-22 for the canyon. So if you're gonna put central sewer, you've gotta look at that zoning and get real about what's realistic. So, and that would, and we're
It's
talking.
a whole different,
It's a great segue.
whole different set of
What I could
meetings.
talk about.
Yes, it is.
But the Big Sky 20-year build-out plan's 320 million gallons a year with the current zoning, or
Right.
current boundary they have. It would double the 20-year build-out plan for the canyon.
unless that zoning is
Unless the
changed.
zoning changed, which something the community could work on and do.
Could work on it too, absolutely.
And we have the chair of our zoning
There you go.
listening to this too.
Didn't ever take up spot before we switched to the segue.
Big vote of confidence from Steve.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you
All
so
right.
much, David.
Sure.
Excuse me.